Okay, this will just be a quick video of how to do a heater core on 82 to 1992 Camaro or 82 to 92 Trans Am Firebird. They're all going to be the same. I know that I need a heater core because when I'm driving, the passenger side floor becomes wet right down there and it smells like coolant. All right, the first thing I'll do is remove the coolant hoses that feed the heater core and take the coolant out of the heater core. So these two hoses here are the coolant, one's in, one's out. So I'm going to remove those clamps. I'm going to put a little bit of rag underneath here because it's going to leak coolant when I take the hose off. You can clamp the line if you want. You can squeeze them with hose clamps. Sometimes I use vice grips with a rag. So I wrap the rag and pinch it with vice grips. The rag protects the hose. In this case, I'm just going to take the clamps off and quickly pull the hose up and make sure it's above the high line of the rad and it won't leak out. So I went ahead and taken a sheet off my bed because I couldn't find any rags. So that's what I did there. I loosened these clamps. Usually these are going to be an 8mm socket or a 1/4 inch socket, or you can use a slotted screwdriver. So now that they're loose, mine are too big so they come off no problem. But if yours are seized on there, what you can do is you just like rotate it, try to work it loose. If that doesn't work, you can get a little pick. If you got a little 90-degree pick, try to pick in behind there and lift it up. You go all the way around and try to lift it up off the spigot or whatever it's on. If that doesn't work, you can get a heat gun or something and get a little bit of heat on there and it'll soften up the rubber and you should be able to rotate it off. If all that doesn't work, you will replace the hose. So what you'll do is you take a razor knife and you'll cut it, and you'll be careful not to cut the spigot underneath, because if you put a groove in it, that could be a passage for coolant to leak out. So very carefully cut it. If you do nick it, the spigot underneath, very carefully get sandpaper and sand out the little cut that you made in the pipe. Actually, no, you don't need to do that because you'll be replacing it with the new heater core. So you just go ahead and cut it off if all else fails. Now to the inside. The heater core is the passenger side. It's up under there. So we're going to be taking this cover off, a cover off the heater core, which is behind it. And then we got to take the dash pad off to get to a screw that's in the top. So first things first is to remove this panel. Now, I don't know what they are. They're probably 7mm or a Phillips. I haven't had this on in a long time. So I'll just set it there in the video. First thing's there. Next thing is this. So we got one screw there, up there on this side, obviously, there, and then there's one way up top, and we'll have to take the dash pad off. So. Next, I'll work on taking the dash pad off. So we got some screws there, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we got these screws here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll get the dash pad off. Got a long one on there, Phillips. It's gonna be the best way to get in there. Okay, be careful taking these out. The screws are about 1.5 inches long. If you take them out all the way and they fall, they will fall down into the vent. Ask me how I know that. That's it. Now the dash pad lifts right off. To access that top bolt, next thing we got to do is take this speaker out. So there's two screws there, and then 2 from the underside. It's going to be this one and this one. That up and out of the way. Next I'll take that nut off. It's a 13mm socket. And that's going to allow the dash to wiggle a bit so we can get our hand in to reach that top screw. You can jam it up so it sits itself out for the screw. It's down in here. The screw, just for reference, is right in line with this. Right in line with this, right here, but straight down. And you can't feel it like this. It's here. You got to turn your hand and dip it down like that. And then you'll feel the screw down there. And I can feel it with my middle finger right there. To get that last screw, this is what I used. About 1.5 inch extension and a short 7mm. And what I did was I went here, I snuck it up, because you can feel the bolt from here. And then I used my other hand, and I snuck my other hand up over top. And I turned the ratchet, and then with my right hand, I held the ratchet onto the screw. Now the cover pops off. There's the heater core. So now holding that in again, same thing. 7mm, 1, 2. Couple back there. 7mm, about 2 feet of extensions. Takes care of that. This is what I got for that one above it. A couple extensions and universal. Now that those 4 screws are out, and the heater core, pull right out. Yeah. Okay, to get it out, it's a little tricky, but eventually you'll get it forward and get the pipes or the firewall. Once that's out, careful. It'll just kind of pop right out. You just gotta watch that. We got some leakage from where? Oh, this from. Actually, doesn't look that bad. Doesn't look old at all. You can see some residue there. Oops. Take it apart and see what we can see. Okay, I just put it here to drain it a little bit. pretty much all the coolant out of it. Next thing to do is take the plastic off. So we got two screws, three. 1, 2, 3. And of course, they are the 7. 1, 2. Unbox the new one. It's in the box. Got some constructions. They look the same. You know, it might have been those. My hoses are too big, especially on this one. Could have been just my hose, you know, got a little stretched and it needed to be tightened. Either way, let's get a new heater core. So we are going to repair that plastic that I broke on the way out. I broke this chunk off, so I'm going to weld that back together. And there was a crack somewhere. Whether I did it or not, I don't know. Most likely, I'm going to fix that up too before I put her onto the new heater core. Okay, now that that's all fixed up, I've checked to see that the new one matches the old one, and it does. Time to put it all back together. I usually just spray some rust proofing. I add a bit of Teflon tape to the small one. My hoses are too big. That should help stop it from leaking. Found this guy a little tore up. Just going to put a bit of silicone under that. I ended up notching this out a little bit. I just cut that because it interferes with that bar right there. It's rubbing right up against it, making it hard to get in. So I decided to notch that out to make it a little easier. Okay, we are on the reassembly stage now. I just pull this out and get a bit of room. Tricky part is getting those pipes back into the firewall. I put my light under the hood so I can see where those hoses, the pipes line up for the heater core through the firewall. The heater core is in, the pipes are through the firewall. I'm going to reinstall those 4 screws. 1, 2, 3 down there, and the 4th one up there. All right, the heater core is all bolted up. I did have a hard time getting these 2 screws in. What I did was I put a little bit of Teflon tape on the head of the screw, and then I jammed it onto the socket. That way it stayed in the socket. I could use the socket and the extension to screw it in. That's the trick there. And then there's the notch that I cut in the plastic, and it was to clear this rod here. Just made it a little bit easier to get it in. I'll put this cover back on next. Just for reference, up here is where that hard to get to screw is. For that difficult screw, I wrapped some Teflon tape around the threads to keep it in there. That way when I put it on, it'll be where it's supposed to be. Okay, next I'm gonna put that nut back on, and then I'm gonna put the speaker where it's supposed to be. And my wire harness is sagging down. It's supposed to go into that hole, but it's torn out, so we'll tie it up. Put the speaker in. Now it's time to put the dash pad on. What? No way! That screw that I dropped earlier into the vent made its way down to the floor. We will be assembling with all the hardware that we took off. All right, time to put these hoses back on. All right, that pretty much sums up the job of the heater core. There is one last thing you need to do is you need to start the engine and get it up to operating temperature, and then shut it off and let it cool down, and check your coolant levels. Once this is cold, don't open this hot. And you want to see where your coolant levels are, and you might have to top it up a little bit because that new heater core is going to fill up with a bit of coolant. So I am down a little bit. So yeah, you just, once it's cold again and you've had it warm, check the rad, and then you check your overflow bottle. Make sure everything's good there, and obviously check to see if you got heat. Pretty warm. This should be pressed in the system. I'm checking there for any leaks. And rides, make sure everything's good, and that's a job well done. I hope it helps.